Oh, here we go. Brilliant. So we're recording. So it's a real pleasure to introduce Will Orme from Amazon AWS to talk to us about working backwards from the future. Thank you, Will.
Thanks, Lisa. Good morning, everyone. Thanks very much for giving up some of your time today to listen to some of the lessons that we've learned from our customers and some of the insights that those lessons have helped us to develop. My name's Will. I'm part of the Amazon Web Services UK local gov team. Our team works with local authorities and the partners who support them right across the UK. Excuse me. That work takes us right across the digital spectrum. It gives us exposure to a whole range of challenges and conversations that customers are working on, right from large-scale digital transformation, specific service innovation, or application modernization, rationalization, and obviously this year, reacting to the unpredictable and becoming more agile in working practices. So in this session, I'm going to give you a really brief overview of AWS to start with, and then I really want to talk about how some of our customers see their future, the future of their council, the future of the services that they're delivering. And then I'll close by looking at some of the steps customers can take to get started on that journey. Any questions, please do stick them in the chat and I'll take them at the end if that's okay. So what is AWS? AWS, Amazon Web Services, is a $41 billion run rate company, and it provides the technology behind companies and organizations such as Netflix, Barclays, Amazon, the Train Line, The Guardian, Ryanair, Peloton, GoDaddy, as well as supporting public sector organizations such as the Ministry of Justice, Comic Relief, Companies House, LA County, City of Chicago, Newport, Cambridge University Press, Cancer Research UK, many, many more. Customers continue to choose AWS because it has more services and more features within those services than any other cloud provider. AWS has more than 175 fully featured services, including compute, storage, databases, networking, analytics, robotics, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and Internet of Things. And in addition to having the greatest breadth of services, AWS also has the deepest functionality within those services. So for example, databases, where we have 15 database options. It's the most complete family of purpose-built databases, and it gives customers the right tool to do the right job so they can spend less money, be more productive, and change their customers' experience. We've got a real record of innovation, a nod to the talk that was earlier in the week from Alex. We innovate faster than anyone else, and we continue to expand that gap. So in 2011, for example, we released over 80 significant services and features. In 2018, that had increased to 1,957 new features and services. What we're really proud of is that over 90% of our roadmap is developed from what customers tell us they want and how they want to see our services develop. So we have millions of active customers and tens of thousands of partners globally, and it gives us a real network effect, or customers a real network effect when they use AWS. So across virtually every industry and every size, including startups, enterprises, public sector organizations, running every imaginable use case that you can on AWS. And this year, we launched our Open Government Solution Program, which allows government agencies to open source the tech that they build for use by other government agencies. AWS has unmatched experience, maturity, reliability, security, and performance. Internally, we say that there's no compression algorithm for experience, and that's because you can't learn certain lessons until you get to different milestones in scale. Gartner's rated AWS as the leader in cloud computing for the last 10 years, both in terms of completeness of vision and ability to execute. So what do local government customers and local authorities want to talk about, and where do they take us on that conversation? Those conversations typically start with us looking at one or more of the following areas that you can see. So infrastructure, that could be full-scale data center migration. It could be establishing a data lake for better analytics and governance. It could be backup and disaster recovery or a database migration. And customers come to us because we can help them save a lot of money, typically over 30% for a DC migration, for example. They can also build a more resilient, secure and agile infrastructure. And often customers are fed up with being locked into expensive contracts with punitive auditing schedules with legacy suppliers. A line of business applications, whether it's delivery of social care, provision of housing, fixing, maintaining the roads, facilitating an election, educating our children, registering births, deaths, marriages, collecting tax. Councils have a huge number of different jobs to do, as you know, and that can easily mean delivering 1,000 different services and up to 500 different business applications to do that. With remote working, whether it's the call software that facilitates that or the networking infrastructure that supports it, this has been a huge area for customers in particular this year, and it's demonstrated the massive capability for change and the willingness to challenge themselves and tackle difficult problems that exist within local government. Customer service, this is at the heart, I think, of a lot of what local governments talk to us about and where they're looking to drive change more quickly. So whether it's finding the most appropriate way to be able to communicate with the citizen, or for different communication channels to be aligned and share common data, that requires a lot of experience in security as well as customer obsession. So a council might have an Alexa skill for bins, or a chatbot on the website, or a text email service, or a highly scalable virtual contact center. All these can be powered by AWS, but really the art is in the design and delivery of it, and that's where councils are really leading the way. Smart cities, I know we all inwardly groan when we hear that, but it's a catch-all term at the moment that's can be used to encompass anything from an IoT proof of concept, 5G installation, LED street lighting, a new analytics platform, predictive maintenance schedules, pretty much anything you can think of that's a digital project in a city. We work with cities to help them understand what their use cases are and how they can build those use cases. How they can build the business cases for those. Partners are a huge part of the conversation. They're absolutely essential part of the picture, whether that's a startup or SMB through to large global companies and outsourcing suppliers. A lot of our work is working with them and with the customer to move their products to a cloud, or to, well, clearly to the cloud, but to really to an infrastructure that the customer, the council, is looking to use and wants to use to help them integrate their offerings. So, what does it mean to work backwards? Amazon's got a strong history of innovation. It's in our DNA, and it's something that everyone who works here is empowered and encouraged to do. The formula we use for it is pretty straightforward, but like anything, it takes practice to get good at it. So when we look at a new idea, we start with a really strong picture of what the finished article is, and we cement that by writing a press release. It's a fictional press release, but what it does is describe the product in detail and explains what the benefits are of that for the customer. Once we finalize that press release, that is what we're going to build. We won't deviate or get sidetracked, and we put a huge amount of effort into that document. It'll go through many stages of review and iteration, but it gives us a clear guiding light to work towards. That's what the whole team are going to deliver. Yes, we will discover other interesting things along the way, but we won't be distracted by them. We might make a note to come back and loop around and explore those things, but we will deliver what it says on the press release. There's a lot of steps to this. It's complex, as you can imagine, but whether we're launching a Kindle or a new database or a new Echo device or a Prime service or anything else, this is the process that we use. On the previous slide, I talked about where local government customers typically start their conversations with us. And once customers start to become more confident and understand that they can unlock their potential using cloud, the conversation moves quite quickly from being transactional to more strategic. I'm going to go back to smart cities, and I know you're probably still groaning, but it's all right, because this is a real minefield for customers. It's become a catch-all term for the future capability and service delivery of a city or a region. And it's a messy space with hundreds of products and platforms, many of which are excellent in their own right. But imagine that city or region with the 1,000 services and the 500 applications. The headache of managing and incorporating a whole load of more services. And this is where we start to work backwards with those cities and regions from their future goals. Working backwards here doesn't mean trying to reverse engineer an awesome dashboard that the housing team are using and the social care team think looks great and they want to repurpose it for them. It means looking at where does that local authority want to be in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years time. You know, these plans exist, and getting agreement from across the organisation and commitment from across the organisation that this is what you're going to deliver. So customers tell us that they envisage a future where they can share and interpret data in health and police, fire, education, and not-for-profit organisations in order to deliver better and more efficient services to the public. They want to use the data that they've got to help inform their decision making. They talk about smart places. So smart places, how easy is it today to compare data from different teams or from different systems in a local authority? How easy is it for businesses to share their data on customer footfall, for example, with a local authority and vice versa? How easy is it for a service manager or an officer at the local authority to understand the interaction that another department within that authority is having with a family that they're also working with? How much time does it take to answer an FOI request? How many projects are negatively impacted because systems won't talk to each other because there's no secure way to share data? A smart place in the future is one where data is available in a highly secure and well-governed environment to the appropriate, that data is available to the appropriate users at the appropriate time. A place where users can see and access the data that is appropriate to their role without having to ask for it. It's just there and it's easy to view and to gain insight from. In order to make data-driven decisions, local authorities need to have control and ownership of their data. In talking to some city and region customers is that they currently don't have access to all their data, or over time, understandably and inadvertently, they've lost some of the control of they've lost some of the control to data that comes from third-party suppliers. So local authorities face massive complex challenges, as we know. They can't turn off a service or build in some downtime whilst they roll out a new release. Imagine what just would happen if they did. They can't just sell more stuff or raise prices or increase prices to fund a project. They're not designed, or they weren't designed or built with continuous improvement for digital services in mind. But they do contain our nation's experts on what most of us would describe as critical services. Think about the fine line between health and social care, or accessing benefits or housing, getting our children into schools and delivering democracy at a local and national scale. Who else do we trust to do that? And who else would you trust to do that? You know, whatever our temporary frustrations may be about parking or potholes or planning, I think that we would all agree that we have a pretty good system that puts us, the citizen, first and does the best that anyone could for us with increasingly limited resources that it has. Like I say, these are our nation's experts in their field, but look at where that puts us. It's a really complex space. So thinking about sharing that data, the challenges around standalone or isolated data sets, this could be an Excel spreadsheet or an uncontrolled document without cross-connectivity. The effective data governance that ensures that that's consistent data, it's trustworthy, it's not misused, you know, of course, that's increasingly critical. We often hear about the challenges that customers face with vendor lock-in. This is a really big conversation. It's not going to change overnight, but if you look to the future, you know, as a local authority, do you want to be running your business in a way that supports the business model of your suppliers, or do you want to be running your business in a way that gives you agility and an ability to innovate quickly? One of the biggest challenges that our customers will talk to us about is attracting and retaining people with those skills. It's a really big challenge. The market rates for a lot of these people just mean that they're beyond the reach of the public sector. However, there are success stories here. Upskilling and training staff, aligning skills to a well-designed strategy or on a project basis means that you've got a blend of internal and external resource that you can focus with a kind of like laser-like efficiency, if you like, on what you want to deliver. So the common denominator across all these challenges, you've got it, data. What's changing now, though, is the pace at which technology is progressing and the scale of what we can offer, or what it can offer to local authorities and their communities, and by communities, including both business and citizen profiles. That technology moves on and continues to evolve at a pace that even 5 or 10 years ago wasn't realistic to forecast. Think today about the super low cost of secure storage in the cloud, or diversity of database, or the ease at which an IoT device or devices can be deployed and managed, or the impact that RPA can have on reducing unproductive time in somebody's day, the speed at which a virtual call center or remote desktop solution can be deployed and then subsequently collapsed as it's no longer needed, the ability to pay for hyperscale compute power by the second without upfront commitments or expensive audits. AWS alone has over 175 fully featured services, and there's other cloud providers in the market as well. So going back to those initial numbers, 500 applications, 1,000 services, and a council that in the future wants to be able to compare data sets to gain insight and deliver more efficient services and innovate more quickly. At the moment, those applications are being hosted on a mix of on-premise or SaaS products or a cloud or a multi-cloud environment. It's really complex. And that's before you add in those expensive licensing and audit schedules that some providers use. The data produced and used by those applications is a real challenge to manage, and it can often reduce capability down to the lowest common denominator. That data could be in the local authority's data center, the application provider's data center. In the worst case, maybe that's on a server under someone's desk. And often we'll talk to customers, or customers will talk to us, and some of the stories we've heard are, yeah, of course the contract builds in that we can have access to this data whenever we want, and you can see on the screen a couple of models where perhaps you can see a curated view of that in a dashboard, or you can gain access to some of your data through an API, or in the worst case, actually when customers have asked, that the access to the data isn't really there. So our view from listening to customers is that local authorities need to take back control and ownership of their data, and that by doing so, they better position themselves to take advantage of technology in a way that suits them and their customers and the businesses and the citizens of their region in order to build those future services that they want. So by taking control and ownership of their data, they can enable themselves in a way that just isn't possible with as demonstrated on that previous slide. And that means establishing a highly secure environment, controlled and owned by the local authority, and choosing to work with suppliers who understand the importance of that. So now when a third-party application provider works with the local authority, instead of holding the local authority's data in their environment and providing the local authority with an API to gain access, it's the other way around. The data remains with the local authority, and those providers use APIs to access the data they need for the duration they need it to deliver the service that they're providing. What does that look like then? So we all have heard many times about the single view of a citizen, single view of this, of that. But imagine that town or a region where parts of the public sector and private sector alike are all providing services in a similar space. Often that can be in social care. So you'll have health, you'll have the council, you'll have charities and business, all with overlapping, complementary, maybe conflicting, but really working in the same space services. So wouldn't it make more sense from a resource and customer service perspective to work together and deliver a joined up service? Of course it would. But without a clear picture of who's doing what and a secure way to share that data, how could it work? So the single view can refer to information and insights that you get from integrating or enhancing existing data sets. It can focus on people, so single view of the customer, which we've all heard of a lot, or places or things, or a blend of all three. So just going to touch on a couple of customer use cases. But first, just want to take a quick look at a typical customer data landscape. So it illustrates some of the existing primary master data sets and the common to a lot of the conversations that customers are having with us. You can see on the wheel, and I'm sure there's nothing new to anyone there, but you can see just the different types of data sets, and already I'm sure you're able to imagine the benefits to the end user should you be able to share some of that. So imagine a public health team being able to understand a bit more about the customers that they're working with by having better enabled conversations with social care teams, for example, or with antisocial behaviour teams being able to understand a little bit more and work with housing a bit more easily. We heard a great story. Well, it's not a great story actually; it's a dreadful story. But we heard a story that really illustrates this well about a local authority. A family, they were telling us about a family who had 4 visits from the council in 1 week, one from child services, one from adult services, one from housing, and one from the antisocial behaviour team. Unsurprisingly, that family was pretty fed up with the council. It's not the best use of resources, and it wasn't the best experience for that family. So a couple of customer examples. Transport for London, I know a lot of people have heard this, but it just really illustrates the point of what they can achieve, or what you can achieve by sharing data and opening and working more openly with local businesses. So they developed a third-party, or established a third-party developer ecosystem by opening up some of the data around these sets. That achieved now some 6,000 developers engaged in digital projects using TfL's anonymized open data, and that's created so far 360 mobile apps. What does this benefit? Well, it helps TfL, or would help, does help TfL understand that they want to curate and deliver better quality data internally. But to the community and to London, that's added £130 million per annum to the local economy. London Borough of Waltham Forest, they created a single view persona of the customer around households in the borough. So they did that using the land and property data set to identify the location, electoral roll information to identify the household and its occupants, and combined it with enforcement data and linked to fixed penalty notice and antisocial behaviour orders. So that gave the borough employees a really holistic understanding when they were visiting the properties of the personas involved and the level of security to be considered for their own personal safety. So you imagine the level of confidence that then gives those officers when A, going out to visit those customers, but B, the immediate level of increased level of understanding they've got with the challenges that those customers and families are facing. Copenhagen, I love this, wonderful Copenhagen. I think more cities should have words in front of them like wonderful. It'd be great. So the city of Copenhagen asked, how can they inspire guests to experience wider attractions in their city throughout the year? So Wonderful Copenhagen is an organisation that's responsible for and works with over 300 city attractions, operators and related establishments like restaurants. They look for answers in the large volume of mobility data that the city held on tourist movements, and they worked out, or they discovered where visitors go and when. They looked at the duration of stay at attractions and where people go next, and how the weather and event schedules affected those visits. And from the patterns that they surfaced, they could identify where bottlenecks were, and that allowed them to improve foot flow in the future. Business opportunities really important in today's landscape, difficult landscape, and it helps build strategies around event schedules on weather conditions, time of the year, etc. So you can imagine the impact that has got on visitors, on residents, and dealing with those bottlenecks, but really importantly to local businesses and the encouragement for them to interact with the city more openly. London Borough of Hackney, this is around risk planning and mitigation. So at the onset of the pandemic, Hackney wanted to rapidly identify vulnerable citizens within their community to help mitigate risk for those people. So by joining data at a property level using the unique property reference number and 6 other data sets, they could identify, for example, a vulnerable single household with a criteria of resident over 70 with no active council support. They identified 970 households who may require support during the pandemic. That's massive. Or disability household with a household with one adult caring for a disabled child or an adult. And that's the outcome of that being it's a low income threshold that may require carer support, may experience additional hardship, and discovered over 5,000 households in that category. Again, that's massive. So there's loads of examples and ideas, kind of surfaced in the conversations we've had with customers and in those specific use cases above. But how can a council start today on that journey without committing to a hugely expensive and labour-intensive project? First, think about where you're going to put all your data in and how you're going to secure and govern it. It makes no sense at all for this not to be in cloud. Why on earth would you buy hardware that you have to manage and keep up to date when you can have the latest technology in the cloud managed for you and for less money? Someone in your organisation will rightly want to talk about security and the sensitivity of personal data, and those are really important conversations to have. But anyone with the idea that cloud is not secure or is less secure than your existing on-prem environment is just wrong. Start small and keep one eye on the future. Prove your business case in a low risk, low cost way. Load in some data, ask questions of it, demonstrate the value. If you don't see value, then you simply delete it. If you do, then realize that value and move on to the next business case. But make sure that you keep your eyes fixed on that press release or that vision of the future. Really nail that, agree it internally, and keep your work focused towards it. Share your knowledge and findings, talk to local businesses, have them on the team, understand what they've already done and proved in your region. You're likely to find that there'll be businesses that are experts in their field, just as local authorities are experts in the delivery of public services, and that they're as passionate as the local authority to improve and grow the region. Talk to neighbouring authorities. If they successfully trialed something, do you really need to trial it again? Or can you just adopt it and achieve the same benefits that they have, but more quickly? And then finally, be bold. It feels like we often say that we face unprecedented times, but now perhaps more than ever, there's a moment for us all to think differently and to challenge the status quo. Is the way that your data is set up today best suited to your business model or to that of your suppliers? Why does a project that delivers big savings need to take so long? What could you achieve if it was easier for everyone to say yes to change in your organisation? And what is the tipping point where you go from proving the business case to fully committing to a lower cost, more secure, data-driven future? So thank you very much for taking the time to listen to this presentation. I hope it's given you a flavour for the conversations that our customers are having with us, what they're telling us matters to them and how they see their future. We're working with local authority customers and our partners to deliver control and ownership of data and enable insight from that back to the local authority. Working with our partners, many of whom are existing suppliers to local authorities, we're able to deliver results quickly, with no commitment and at very low cost. So please do get in touch with us to find out more.